we find Kabbalah Torah, we stood at Sinai, in the words of Chazal, it was kechoson yotzet kreskava. Like a choson, a groom goes out towards the bride. Now there's a custom among Sephardim. Today you find these among Ashkenazim at a wedding, at the chuppah, as the kala is coming towards the chuppah, the choson steps down a few steps, he goes towards the kala. At one time, among Ashkenazim, this custom did not exist. Today, you find among Ashkenazim too. It's in certain situations. The choson goes towards the kala. Why? We find also that when the parents walk down the choson and the kala, they hold candles. Because we find the Kabbalah Torah, there was fire, it was called the torches. So therefore, it's like reenactment of Sinai. Sinai was a marriage between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. So now that the marriage is taking place, also it's a slight replication of that. But it's Chos Yotz Kala. We mentioned yesterday that the whole concept of Eza Kenegdo, that the wife, that she's the Ezer. And that's the reason why we explained the Baskel comes out from Chorev, that the wife is wired or is retrofitted exactly to address every aspect of the husband's spiritual need. The physical for the sake of the spiritual, or whatever it may be. That's why HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the wife. The appropriate match, the match for the husband, she's retrofitted exactly to address every nuance of spiritual responsibility that has to be addressed. HaKadosh Baruch Hu was kechoson kreskava. We were created, as it says, Bereshit bara Elokim es hashamayim v'ha'aretz, b'shvil Yisrael shlikras reishis, b'shvil Torah shlikras reishis. What is the objective of creation? L'chvodi barosid. The Navi says, I created this world l'chvodi. For my honor, I created it. And whoever recognizes my honor, he's actually fulfilling the objective of creation. And who is the nation that was created for my honor to address every aspect of the chvodi? It's Klal Yisrael. B'shul Yisrael shnikus reishis. So Yisrael is the Eza Kenegdo. The Choson is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Klal Yisrael is the Ezer. Our function is to address every aspect of Hashem's kavod. Just as the wife, it was created in terms of a neshama, in terms of her capacity to address every aspect of the husband's need, spiritual needs, to provide whatever that is, to satisfy that the husband should be able to develop and advance within his capacity. Identically, we are the Kala Keneged Chosan. We were created to address Kvodi, to address God's glory. That every nuance of God's glory within Klal Yisrael that exists, and we have that ability. That's L'chvodi Koborosiv. And that's why Chazal depict the relationship between HaKadosh Baruch Hu and Klal Yisrael. It's Kechosan Likras Kala. It's like the groom going out towards the bride. We are the bride, we are the Kala. And once mentioned him at the Shalah Kodesh. Friday night, we say in the Shemona Esrei, Atu Kidashto. Shachris, we say Yismach Moshe Matnas Chelko. Mincha, we say Atu Echad Shibcha Echad. Bikam Choitzkud. Yisrael Goyech Boretz. I mean, on the Yom Tiv, every Amidah, every Shemona Esrei is Atu B'char Tok B'Kol Amin. Yet on Shabbos, we start with Atu Kidashto. You've betrothed us. Yismach Moshe Matnas Chelko. We've rejoiced. Atu Echad Shibcha Echad. You're one and we are one. Why the change of reference of our relationship with Hashem? So the Shalah Kodesh explains that Shabbos is Me'ein Olam Haba. Shabbos has a semblance of the world to come, even though it's a physical day, but in its essence, the Shekhinah, God's presence, enters into the world on Shabbos, even before there was a Klal Yisrael. And that's why we would have the Gemara in Be'ah, second parak. Shabbos is Kodesh V'Kaimi. From the very beginning of creation, Shabbos itself is a holy day. The Sanhedrin doesn't sanctify Shabbos. The Kadosh Yisrael has Zmanim. Why the Zmanim? Why the festivals and the Yom Tovim? Why did they have Kedusha? The Kadosh Yisrael has Zmanim. Hashem sanctified us. Therefore, we have the ability to sanctify time. But Shabbos is Kodesh V'Kaimi. Shabbos is holy in its essence from the very beginning of creation. Why? Because Shabbos, when Hashem finished creating the world, God then entered into this existence and he spiritualized the whole world. That like electrified the world. That was Shabbos. The Shekhinah enters. The Shari Tshuva cites the Arizal. The Arizal, we say the bracha right before Kaddish Friday night, we say, we ask Hashem to spread upon us Sukkah Shlomecha. What is Sukkah Shlomecha? That's the Shekhinah. That Hashem should allow the Shekhinah to come upon us. We speak of Sukkah's Davar Nofoles on Sukkahs. We say the rebuilding of Sukkah's Davar Nofoles, which is referred to the Mikdash. The Shekhinah is the Sukkah. Sukkah is something which covers us, which protects us. So the Shari Tshuva cites that the Arizal, when in Shul, when they would say Ufrosalin Sukkah Shlomecha, the Arizal would stand up at that moment. Why would he stand up at that moment? Because that's exactly the moment when we say Hashem should allow his Sukkah to spread upon us. That's where the Shekhinah enters Friday night. So he would stand to acknowledge the presence of the Shekhinah. But every segment of Shabbos, the three segments, this Friday night, the Shabbos morning, and the Shabbos after midday. As the day continues, Hashem's presence intensifies. It's at one level at the beginning. It continues to intensify, and it climaxes at Mincha time. And therefore, the Arizal would go to the mikvah to purify himself before Shabbos, to be prepared to accept the Shekhinah, the Hashem's presence. Shabbos morning, that there was another level of Shekhinah, of divine presence, he'd again go to the mikvah. Mincha time, he'd go to the mikvah third time, because now he's acknowledging and welcoming another level of Shekhinah. That's the Arizal. And the Shalom Kodesh explains, Friday night is Kedushin. That's the betrothal. We start with Kedushin. Shabbos morning is after the swing, after we enter into the domain of Hashem. This is the wedding. The Simchus Chos of the Kala. We rejoice. In the afternoon, this is the consummation of the relationship, that we become one. As the husband becomes one with the wife through consummating the marriage, Mincha, there's a level of attachment to Klal Yisrael, that's Ato Echad V'Shivta Echad. That's the Arizal. So what is it? What is the from Sinai going forward? Until Sinai, what were we? We were B'nai Noach. Our classification was we were Noahites. We became Odom at Sinai. The world was created for Odom. That Hashem should have a relation with Odom. The Eze Kenegdo, Hashem is Chosen, it's Keneged Kala. Hashem is the groom going out towards the Kala. If with the Kala, that means we have the capacity within the spiritual realm to dress every aspect of Kvodi. The Chodi Borosiv. So just as the Kala, the wife, was created, her Neshama, that's the Basko, which is Yotze B'Chorev. Bas Ploni L'Ploni, identically, Klal Yisrael was created with the capacity to address every nuance of Kovod Hashem, that we should bring that about. As a result of that, the Chofetz Chaim cites a famous Yerushalmi, the Yerushalmi says that any generation that the Beis Hamikdash was not rebuilt, it's as if it was destroyed. Why? So he explains that it's within our capacity, if we would make corrections on why it was destroyed, the Beis Hamikdash would be rebuilt. It's within our capacity. So why is the Kavod Hashem not being addressed? Why hasn't it happened yet? We're nearly 2,000 years. The bias is chorib, it's destroyed. And why was it destroyed? Was sin aschino. So Chofetz Chaim writes, evidently, as much as we want to believe that we have avas chinam, and you want to use all these terms in the vernacular to convince ourselves where we should be, if we always should be, was the Beis Hamikdash. So that the Beis Hamikdash hasn't come back. It's only because we haven't taken initiatives, which is within our capacity, that we could take, and it could be restored. So why was it not restored? Because we're falling short of our responsibilities. But if it was beyond our capacity to bring it back, why are we held accountable? And therefore it's considered as if it was destroyed. So again, every aspect of the Chavodi Barosiv, it's within our toolbox, so to say, to be able to address everything, to restore it as it should be restored. And if we do not, we're held accountable, and therefore it's considered as if it was destroyed at our time. Based on our Shabbos, that the main covered Shabbos that we have to display a greater level of value is the day meal, not Friday night meal. That's the main meal. Meaning, if you have, let's say, a special food to be served Friday night or Shabbos day, you should serve it during the daytime. Covered Shabbos day is greater than the Friday night. So the question is why? It's according to what it's very good. When's the wedding? When's the Yismach Lo Ba'oshem Adas Chelka? Right? Yeah, you have a l'chaim or a vort, right? Okay, serve, you get a caterer. When you have the wedding, it's a whole different level of catering. Now you're really rejoicing. Therefore, the daytime is the greater covered Shabbos than the nighttime for that reason. But of course, you have guests coming Friday night. You have two challahs, a large challah and a small challah. You're going to use the bigger one for Friday night because that you need it for Friday night. It's speaking where all things are equal, and should you have it at Friday night or Friday or Shabbos day, it should be Shabbos day for that reason. We speak about chamin. We eat hot food on Shabbos, right? That's what we have cholent. It's hot food. When is it? It's not Friday night. The main chamin is during the daytime, even though Friday night's easy because Shabbos just began. The food is still piping hot. You just took it off the stove. But during the daytime, that the fire is no longer there, so we make sure to have a food item that's hot to be able to eat hot food during the daytime meal for that reason.
But I guess where I was going, Rabbi, is if the peak of the Shekhinah
is Shabbos, we should have it again. But as we're saying, that's the consummation of the marriage. That's after the wedding. It has nothing to do with. It's no longer celebration. It's the focus on that relationship. That's the focus. You understand? Exactly as we're saying. The day meal is what? That's simchas chosmokal. That's the wedding. You're celebrating the relationship. Shal Shudas is the intimate moment between us and Hashem. The Ramban writes, after all the laws of korbanos, of sacrifice, were explained in the third book, which is Vayikra, now in this book, the Torah begins speaking about the mitzvahs which pertain to the Mishkan, the Ol Moed. Vayhizir al tumas mikdash kadosh in the Doros. In Vayikra, it speaks about you're not permitted to contaminate the mikdash in the midbar and even to the future. Ato yagbil samishkan diyosem b'midbar. Now it's right. The Ramban here writes that the Mishkan is a replication of Sinai. you have to, just as Sinai was encircled, the mount was encircled with Klal Yisrael, identically, the Mishkan was encircled. You had Kroshim, you had the vertical beams. Since the Shechina was there, we'll see, it has to be encircled, has to be guarded. Therefore, a person who's the alien, if he enters there, he's subject to spiritual excision. Kasher Amashel, Yisokel, as it says, if you touch the mountain, when the Shechina was on the mountain, the person was subject to stoning. And it says by the Mishkan, Hazor Koriyumos, the Zor is not permitted to cross that line. Vitziva, V'lo Yovo, Liros Kevalos HaKodesh Mason. You're not permitted to go into the Holy of Holies. Right? Only Moshe was permitted to ascend. Kasher Hizishom, Penyarso Vel Hashem Liros. They'll be destroyed if they approach Hashem to be able to see, to gaze at the Shechina. Vitziva, Ushmartem es Mishmeres HaKodesh, es Mishmeres HaMizbeach. You should set standards to protect the Kodesh and the Mishmeres HaMizbeach. Kasher Omashom, V'gam HaKohanim Digosh Vel Hashem Yiskadoshu. The Kohanim will approach Hashem, they have to be sanctified. V'Kohanim V'om. V'hinei Tzivo Echtia Mishmeres HaMishkan Kelov. Now the Torah, this in Bamidbar, speaks about how exactly do we deal with the Mishkan and its vessels? Who carried what? The family of Moshe carried the holiest of the vessels. The Levium. Other families carried the Kroshim, right? The beams, but they went on the wagons. Ech Yachnu Soviv. How do they encircle the Mishkan? The Mishkan is the equivalent of Sinai. The Shvatim, the 4 camps, each camp was comprised of 3 Shvatim. They encircled the Mishkan. And the Kohanim, who were the ones who could approach, who were qualified to do the Avodah, how do they conduct themselves when they camp, and when they travel, when they carry it? And what are the Levim's responsibility to protect it? Hakol malo lemidush kavalo. All these protocols is an indication of distinction for the Mikdash and to honor it. Gosha Amru, Enodoma Paltin Shal Melech Sheish Lo Shomrin Lo Paltin, Shein Lo Shomrin. You cannot compare a palace of the king that has sentries guarding it, that nobody should be able to enter, and a palace which is wide open, which is not, the entrances are not protected. Mainly, the focus of this sefer is the mitzvahs only for that particular moment when we're in the desert. Ubenisim hanasulem, and the miracles we experience in the desert. The sapir kol masa Hashem she'osim mod lahafli, to share with us all the actions of Hashem, which He did with us lahafli, which were wondrous, meaning miracles. The sefer ki heichal losi she'iveim lefneim lechorev. Speaks about how we have to deal with our enemies and how the land should be divided. This sefer doesn't discuss the mitzvahs which pertain to all generations into the future. Only some of the mitzvahs regarding sacrifices, which was mainly Vayikra, which is called Torah's Kahanim, Nishlam Biuron Shom, and it's not fully fleshed out in Vayikra, Vishlim Besever, and in Bamidbar, the small aspects which haven't been complete are completed here in Sefer Bamidbar. Now, the Ramban says all the communications of Torah were what? Were in the Mishkan. He says, The end of Vayikra ended with Shemitah, which it says Bar Sinai. Chazal Omakan Shoya Hadibur Hazeh B'Ol Moed Kechol Hadibur Shehiske B'Tchilos HaSefer Vayikra. Just as at the beginning of Vayikra Hashem Moshe Me'Ol Moed, all the communications were from Ol Moed to Moshe. Identically now we continue, everything's in Ol Moed. From the moment the Mishkan was erected, Vayikra Elov Hashem Me'Ol Moed. All the communications was from Ol Moed. These come in there. Sinai, that they did not travel from Midbar Sinai until they were counted. Because only when we were about to enter into Eretz Yisrael, which were the plains of Moab, we counted the second time. But the Dibur, the communication between Hashem and Moshe Rabbeinu is Ol Moed. So it's very good. We asked the question at the beginning of Vayikra, Rashi, when they cite Chazal, that the level of audibility when Hashem spoke to Moshe was identical to the audibility that he spoke the Klal Yisrael at Sinai. It says Psukim, Kol Hashem B'Koach, Kol Hashem B'Odor, Kol Hashem Shovei Arozim, quotes the Pasuk in Tehillim that the voice of Hashem is something which is magnified at a very high level, and it was the same level of audibility Hashem communicated to Moshe in Ol Moed. And even though it was at that level of audibility, it did not go beyond the confines of the Ol Moed. That's the Rashi at the beginning of Vayikra. So we asked the question then, when you're speaking to 600,000 males above the age of 20, and the other people, less, the women, the children, you have to speak at that level of audibility. But now he's speaking to Moshe Rabbeinu. Why is it necessary to speak at that level of audibility? So we explained then that Moshe Rabbeinu, he was the only one qualified to receive the Torah because Torah had to be given to Klal Yisrael. And therefore he was the conduit because his neshama was the equivalent of Klal Yisrael. That's why he was the pastor through him. And that's why it says, Hashem medaber b'toch. The Shekhinah spoke through his throat. He was the conduit to communicate the Torah to Klal Yisrael, because he was Klal Yisrael. We're saying now, according to Ramban, the Mishkan is Sinai. It's a replication of Sinai. The Torah was given at Sinai. At Sinai, what was the level of audibility when the Torah was given to Klal Yisrael? It was what? At that special level. Identically, the Mishkan being a replication of Sinai, and Moshe being the equivalent of Klal Yisrael, and since this is the equivalent of the giving of Torah, continuously through the 40-year period till Moshe Rabbeinu passed away, as a result of that, the audibility of Hashem's voice to Moshe Rabbeinu is no less than Sinai, because this is Sinai. The Ol Moed is the equivalent of Sinai, as he explained. And in Vayikra, we spoke about mice and behemah. How do you tithe a flock or a herd of the animals that you must take miser? Means you count 9, the 10th one, you identify this miser. So by saying 10, that's how it's not verbal consecration. You have a small passageway, and the sheep or the animals go through that passageway, and you count through 9, and the 10th one, the Gemara tells us the person would have like a brush with red paint, and he would touch the hide of the animal to identify that animal was the 10th one. It's called Asher Yavor Tachas HaShovet. Whatever goes under the rod, the 10th one is Kodosh, is Meiser, and it has the status of Kochim Kalim, like a Shlomim. So we have two animals, and there's no pigeon. Anything you verbally consecrate, if it becomes blemished, you redeem it. Because how did the Kedusha come upon it? You consecrate it, verbal consecration. Bechor is naturally consecrated when it passes through the womb of its mother. Ma'aseh behema, also it's not verbal consecration, when you count the 10th, it becomes. That's how it becomes ma'aser. Therefore, the Torah tells us that if it becomes a balmum, if it becomes blemished and it's not fit to be brought as a korban, automatically it does not need any redemption. You're permitted to eat it in its state, even not within the Beis Hamikdash, not even within Yerushalayim. It no longer has the status of a korban, because again, it wasn't verbal consecration. Kol hasheyam tafsas Shabbat. Vayikra ends with Ma'aser B'Evel. How does the animal assume the status of kedusha when it goes under that rod? How does Klal Yisrael assume their special level of kedusha? They have to be counted, as it says. We'll see Moshe Rabbeinu, Aaron, and the Nesiim, as they identified each member of each Shevet. That's the equivalent of going under the Shevet. But so therefore, before the consecrated status assumes its full impact on the people, you have to go under the Shevet. And therefore, so the Balaturm says that's what the Torah juxtaposes the Suas Rosh B'nai Yisrael, counting the Jewish people, juxtaposed to the Ma'aser, to say just as over there, only when they were counted, the 10th one did it have Kedusha. Identically, when did we assume that full capacity of Kedusha? Only after we were counted. Okay? Let's take a look at Rashi. To indicate the special love Hashem has for us, He counts us continuously. We left Egypt, He counted us. After the Chet Egel, where there were so many casualties, to see how many survivors there were. When He came, that the Shechina should dwell in our midst, Mishkan, right? The Mishkan was erected in Echad B'Nisan, or B'Echad B'Iyar Monar, and on the 1st of Iyar, He counted us. I asked the question, and one time the Maral tells us, he speaks about the significance of numbers. What is the significance of 5? See, he always says 5 is always ichud. It's actually coalescing the various parts. And he explains, because if you have 4 points at 4 corners, and then you put a center point, the center point brings it all together. That's 5. 4 doesn't have any innate value. 4, because if each one is in each corner, one is not related to the other. It's only when you put the 5th point in the center that brings all the parts together. So the combining factor is the 5th. That brings it together. And we discussed many times. We have Chamisha Chumshik Torah. 5. The Mishnah tells us in Pirkei Avos, but Chumash Mikra. When does a child start studying Chumash? When he's 5 years old. It's 5. Now, we're going to speak about counting the Jews. How many camps were there? There were 4 camps, each comprised of 3. And that was called Machne Yisrael. What was the center camp? The center camp was called Machne Shechina. So they encircled 4 encircled the 1. But what brought them all together? Klal Yisrael with 12 tribes, or 13, which is Echad, including Levi. But what was the combining factor? And the combining factor is we're all the children of Yaakov, Bnei Yisrael. But who's Bnei Yisrael? Bnei Yisrael is what? We are the nation chosen by Hashem. We have that special relationship. So the combining factor, which puts us all on the same level, is what? Our connection to Hashem. That's the combining factor. So 4 means it has no value. What is the main Shem Hashem? Yud Kei Vav Kei. Yud Kei Vav Kei is 4 letters, right? We find that Yaakov had 4 wives. 2 were wives, 2 were matriarchs, 2 were concubines. Who is the 5th? Yaakov is number 5. Without Yaakov, his wives had no value. They're only matriarchs because Yaakov is the patriarch. And Bilhah and Zilpah only had special value because they were children of Yaakov, of Yaakov's. They were the mothers of the children of Yaakov. So therefore, to who gave them that value, each one in their own capacity, it was Yaakov, he was number 5. Hashem gives us value. He's the center. We encircle him. Now, if there would not be a Klal Yisrael in the world, there wouldn't be a Jewish people. What would be? The world wouldn't exist. So the only reason why the world functions is because we give value to Hashem. So Hashem is 4 letters. What combines those letters to give it its value in real time? Klal Yisrael. So we're the 5. So you have 4 camps. It's true. Hashem brought us together. He's the center. But we are the 5th also because we acknowledging him. The 4 letters, now the 4 has the status of 5. U.S. Rosh Kalatsky Yisrael, Mishkan also. You should, Su means uplift or identify. The Rosh Kol Adas Bnei Yisrael, the heads of the families of Bnei Yisrael, the families, the Beis Avosa, according to the paternal, not maternal. One is identified by the paternal, not maternal. The Mitzvah Shemos, Kozochol Kugulosa, the number of names, the males based on the head count. Now, who qualifies to be counted, to have that identity? Only from the age of 20 and above are you acknowledged in terms of that number? The one who's qualified for conscription into the army. They should be counted according to their numbers. Out of Aaron. You and Aaron will be there to count them. Rashi, what's called Yotzit what's called Guvosam? They shkolim, Bekel Gugolos. They're counted through the Mapsa Shekel. The Torah is teaching us that one is not conscripted until if he's less than 20 years old. The Itchem Yu, so who's doing the counting? Atov Aaron, and together with them, Itchem Yu, Ish Lamater. Each person representing his tribe. Ish LaRosh Beis Avosafu. The one who is the leader of the paternal tribe. Itchem Yu, Shtiv Bosam Yu Imochem, Nosi Kol Shem V'Shem. When you count each tribe, the Nosi of that tribe has to be present as you're counting them. Now, Rashi says that after the Egel, where we had casualties to show the love that he had for us, the Jews were counted. Right? He says, over there, Aaron was part of the people who were there to count. Here it's Aaron or Moshe. Why wasn't Aaron there? So the Baal HaTurim explains, Atov Aaron, if you have the Chumash Baal HaTurim, Ma'alo Parshas Kisisa Lucia, Aaron Bosa Minyon, Fishal Yodo Nasa Egel. Because there was a level of culpability to Aaron, because since he was involved in making the Egel, Shishvilu Hutzul the Minyon. Why they have to be counted? Because Aaron participated in the Egel. And that's why there were casualties. Therefore, he was not part of that counting. Because he was responsible to a degree for the lesser numbers. So over here, this counting has nothing to do with a chet. Therefore, he's there to count them together with Moshe Rabbeinu.
Rabbi.
1 second. It's a lengthy Ramban over here, which we're going to go through, hopefully tomorrow. But he speaks about that we find, I'm just to give you the background, that Moshe Rabbeinu, he wanted to go into the land. And because he struck the rock, Hashem says, you will not see that land. But you will see the land. I will show you the land. Why did Moshe Rabbeinu want to go into the land? For what reason? So over there, it's explained, the Farshim, the commentators, they explained that if Moshe Rabbeinu would have gone to Eretz Yisrael and he would have stepped on that land, the land could have never been conquered by any enemy. He would have sanctified it. Moshe Rabbeinu had an ayin tova. As much as Bilam was ayin ro, had the evil eye, Moshe Rabbeinu's eye was so positive. As a result of that, he wanted to see every aspect of Eretz Yisrael, that his eye should come upon it, that ayin tova, that the ultimate bracha would be able to grow from that location. That's why Moshe wanted to see the land. So Hashem says, go up on top of the mountain, I will show you the land. It was a miracle that Moshe Rabbeinu visually was able to see every inch of Eretz Yisrael. Why? That his eyes should see that land, but if he would have physically gone in, it would have been a different level. That it could have never been conquered by the enemy. But Hashem says, I will show it to you, the ayin tova of Moshe Rabbeinu. So the Ramban writes later, he counted, every Jew was counted. You know what it means to be? That means you stand before Moshe Rabbeinu and you pass by Moshe, Aaron, and the Nasi of the tribe, and their eyes gaze upon you. Their eyes gazing upon each person automatically gives that person a certain degree of significance that he's qualified or he's a location of the ultimate level of bracha because of that. So not only Sinai will be taken as the Am Hashem, as the Goy Koch, but on top of that, Moshe Rabbeinu, it's within our capacity to expand and advance due to the positive eye of Moshe, Aaron, and the Nesiim. The Nasi, of course, it's his family. Moshe and Aaron being Shokol connected Klal Yisrael, Moshe and Aaron being the equivalent of Moshe, passing through this exposure sanctifies you to another level. You have a whole different level of function in the spiritual realm.
Well, when
Closer, Yudan and Reb Shimon, if you do a malacha where the malacha is only a byproduct of your intent, or you're held liable. You dig a hole where your interest is not in the hole, but it's in the earth. You need the earth. So the malacha is the byproduct. That's what malacha is. You're doing the malacha, but you're not interested in the malacha. In the Mishkan, whatever malacha they did for the sake of the outcome, for the malacha itself. So now that it has a semblance of that, is that enough to have liability or not? Reb Shimon says no. Malacha Shen Gufa is only rabbinically not permitted. On a Torah level, it's permitted. Reb Yehuda says no. It's close enough to what they did in the Mishkan. Therefore, one's chayev. One is held liable. Chayev chatos. Inadvertently, deliberately, forewarning, carries the liability of violating Shabbos. That's Machlok Reb Shimon and Reb Yehuda. Now, there's a discussion in the Gemara that a snake is about to bite you. And we're not talking about a poisonous snake, which is pikuach nefesh. And you're trapping the snake not to get bitten. So you have no interest in the snake. The only reason why you're trapping the snake is not to get bitten. So the snake being in a trapped state is only a byproduct of your intent, not to get bitten. The halach is it's permitted. You're permitted, since it entails a degree of pain, if you're bitten by the snake, you're permitted to trap the snake. A person has a boil, and the boil gives you tremendous pain, and you want to lance the boil to take out the pus. Even though lancing the boil, you create an opening, and the Gemara says that's called a Pesach, an opening that the pus comes out and the air goes in. A Pesach is a two-directional opening. You create a pesach, it's binyan. But since over here, person is in pain, we allow it because simply why? Because you're not interested in the opening. Your main intent is what you want to lance it because you want the pus out. So the opening is only a byproduct of your intent. As a result of that, you're permitted to do it on Shabbos. So the question is, if you rule like Reb Shimon, which is the position of Ashkenazic, Poskim, Rishonim, like Reb Shimon, it's not a problem. Normally, Malach Shein Sichel Gufa is only rabbinically not permitted. So over here, because of the circumstance of pain, Malach Shein Sichel Gufa is normally forbidden on rabbinical level. But because of the pain, the Gemara says it's mutter. Normally, you say potter abalosser, you're exempt from the korban, but you're not permitted rabbinically. But because of pain, over here, when it says potter, it's pot or mutter, you're permitted. So if you rule like Reb Shimon, it's not a problem. But if you like Rabbi Yehuda, the Malach Shein Sichel Gufa is chayov, and these are situations not b'goach nefesh. How do we allow you to trap the snake, and how do we allow you to lance the boil, regardless of the pain? But if it's not b'goach nefesh, Malach Shein Gufa is what is a full-fledged, bona fide violation of Shabbos. So Chaim Briskus discusses this, but it's a famous question, which the commentaries on the Rambam, they asked the question on Rambam, it seems to be contradictory to his psak, to his position. Okay? But that's this next halacha.
Rabbi, when you have a let's call it a boil, you are intending to release that, let's call it blood. You want that blood released.
Well, firstly, it's taking out that blood is what is not, it's not blood that you're it's like drawing blood from a person. It's not the same.
So that's considered a different isser then?
No, the isser over there is the opening. The pus itself is contained within that sac.
Is that still a daraisa though that you're doing?
Opening, creating the pesach is a daraisa.
So either one, blood or the opening.
No, it's not blood. Pus is not blood.
I am saying, but they're both daraisa, so it doesn't.
No. Pus is not a daraisa.
No, but the opening is right.
Opening is daraisa.
Right.
Simply because it's Malach Shein Sichel Gufa. The intent is only the pus should go out. That the result is there's no opening, the air goes in. That's a byproduct of your intent. You want to relieve the pain. The pain is, unless the pus is released, you're in tremendous pain. So they allow you to lance it to remove the pus, but simultaneously you create an opening, which is nistoraisa. The answer is, but since that's only a byproduct of your intent, therefore, the simple understanding according to Reb Shimon, it's only rabbinical. So over here, because of the pain, that becomes the overriding factor, and that's why it's permitted. Okay, but according to Rambam, it's very difficult.
Yeah,
he rules like Rabbi Yehuda. So how do we permit it? Okay, so let's see the halacha here. Nechoshim ba'akrabim b'Shabbos, snakes, scorpions, oshar remosim b'mazikim, or you have other crawling creatures which are damagers. Im l'refuah chayav, if you trap them for medicinal reasons, you want to extract something then from medicine, chayav, that's trapping. That's a Malach Shein Gufa. You want the species for the species. The im v'shul shelo yishchenu, but if you only trap it and you shouldn't be bitten, mutter. So that being trapped is only a byproduct of your intent. Your intent is you don't want to be bitten. You have no interest in the snake. You have no interest in the scorpion. As a result of that, that's what's permitted. So I'm saying, according to Reb Shimon, it all falls into place. According to Rabbi Yehuda, it's problematic. Okay, let's see the Mishabura.
Rabbi.
Wait, Jay, before you ask the question, let's see what that
I just want to clarify Malach Shein Sichel Gufa as an intro. What is Eino Miskaven the same concept as that?
No. Eino Miskaven means the outcome is not inevitable.
But isn't that why
it is consecration? We have no interest in the outcome. That's what Malach Shein Sichel Gufa is. It's a consecration. We have no interest in the malacha.
And is that D'Rabbanan, according to Rav Shimon, also not okay, or that's even D'Rabbanan okay?
Which one?
Malacha, Eino Miskaven, that you have no.
It's two separate things. Eino Miskaven means it's not inevitable. It's inevitable, but you're not interested in the malacha, which is only a byproduct of your intent.
So a malacha, Eino Miskaben, which is a psik resha, is that malach shein lagufa?
It depends what your intent is. If you want the outcome, that's a malacha tzrich lagufa. If you don't want the outcome, that's malach shein tzrich lagufa, even though it's a psik resha. Okay, let's see. Chayav. The mikri dvar should be nutzida. A snake, a scorpion, is a species which is trapped. You trap them, you catch them. But if you're trapping it, you shouldn't be bitten. Hainu, afilu b'mokum she'regil l'chosh l'homis. Even we're speaking about the snakes are not poisonous snakes. They rotzen achrov elo omdim b'mkoma. The snake is not pursuing a person. Also come on, sif yud. So you're not permitted to kill them. But to trap them, you're permitted. To confine them, what does that mean? You either cover it with a vessel, or you tie them into a location. Again, because you're not interested in the malacha, which is only a byproduct of your intent. The only reason why you're limiting them, because you're concerned you may be bitten. Let's say, factually, there's no way the snake is going to bite you. Unless you engage with the snake or the scorpion, it's not coming. There's not even a chance that you're going to be bitten. Right? However, because of the level of being hurt, being damaged, I feel shrabona leka. This is explicit in the Gemara. As a result of that, they didn't create any fences. Now this is it. Even though the Rambam, his position is he rules like Rabbi Yehuda, that you have full liability, here he concurs. The time kosu taimo mishum shirlei the zelo mikri melocha klau vavi masasik balmo. It's not a melocha. I'll explain this in a minute. Kevishe ritzoro ben smatzei the klau vajo kavoso lavriach osame olov. The whole concept. A melocha has to have a certain profile. I'll give you an example. Gemara says in Shabbos, the Klau Gadol, a person prunes a tree. What malacha do you violate when you prune a tree? You violate, it's a tolda of notea. When you prune a tree, you enhance its growth. So it's like planting. Let's say a person prunes the tree and has a double intent. He intends with that one action to prune the tree, and the branches that he cuts off, he's interested in the branches. So he's in violation of two malachas. He's in violation of notea, and he's in violation of kotzer, of reaping. Okay, if your intent is what only to prune the tree, you have no interest in the branches, you only have to bring one chados if you do it inadvertently. But if you have an interest in the branches, you have a double liability, you have to bring two chatos, one for notea, one for kotzer. Okay, so Tosaf there makes a point, and seems to be everybody agrees to this. So this is what according to Rabbi Yehuda. According to Rabbi Yehuda, they use of the opinion even if you have no interest in the branches, but factually you did an act of reaping. So if you did an act of reaping, why aren't you chayiv for kotzer? That's Tosas. That's what that Tosas points out. So Tosas answers that reaping has to have a certain profile. Certain malachas and malacha, regardless whether you're interested or not. You dig a hole, when you take the earth out, digging a hole is binyan. Whether you're interested or not in the hole, as long as it's not a damaging act. But if it has some positive value, that's called building. Reaping is only reaping. People reap when you need what's being reaped. But if you have no interest in what's being reaped, that's not classified as reaping. And he's saying, what is trapping? Trapping is confining the species because you're interested in the species. But here, it's just the contrary. You're confining it, you have no interest in the species. So the whole concept of trapping has no application to the case where you're trapping the snake or the scorpion not to be bitten. Therefore, the Rambam, although he rules like Rabbi Yehuda, but here it's lacking in the profile. As a result of that, it's not even classified as a malacha. That's how he's explaining the Rambam.